little buffer time here that you'll probably have to edit out yourself later.
That's fine. Just tell me when you're ready.
Bear in its natural habitat, the Toyota Corolla. That's not how that line works. There's a Studebaker. Moving right along. It's your boy Dan here, CKCC, video and radio and all that stuff. And joining me is Chris.
Hello, everyone. I am calling in live, so you probably noticed the audio difference here because I'm calling you from my car. As I am making the journey to my parents' house for Christmas. And so this is going to be a big update podcast. It's going to be like a standalone little episode, not related to any shows, but it's going to update everybody on what's been going on. And the reason I'm doing this from my car is because, like, I was talking to you, Dan, and I was like, I really want to get this update out and done before Christmas, and I just have no idea when I'm going to have time to do it. And then I remembered that it's a 3-hour ride from my house to my parents' house, and I was like, well, that's plenty of time to do something like this. So that's kind of how the idea came about. So I do apologize for not being on my my Yeti microphone and sounding all crisp and cool and all that, but this is something that I've kind of needed to get out for, I don't know, over a year now, I think, if we really do the time frame on it here. And the other reason I asked Dan to kind of host the call, not just for tech purposes either, but to help kind of move it along a little bit, because doing a podcast where you're just talking to yourself can be kind of difficult. I'm not the biggest fan of doing them that way. I've done some one-man stuff before. They're fine. Like, obviously, plenty of people do them. You know, Jeff Trelowitz does them on his 3 shows. But I've always kind of preferred to just have somebody to talk to and bounce ideas off of. And some of the stuff Dan already knows, so he might be able to fill in the gaps if I forget anything or I miss something, or I don't know, if I get thrown off track, kind of like I am now. And I'm going to try not to do too much road commentary here, as a Honda Civic with way too loud of an exhaust just passed me and is trying to do NASCAR maneuvers while everyone else is doing the speed limit. But, you know, that's driving for you. So, Dan, should we start with the life update, get the heavy stuff out of the way, and then move on to the future, the fun stuff, save that for the end? And sound like a plan to you? Yeah.
I'm always a fan of sending them home happy.
Send the people home happy, exactly. All right, so I'm going to apologize in advance for any vagueness, or if I sound like I'm kind of beating around the bush on saying certain people or places or things by name. But it's going to make sense as I talk a little bit more, because it's all been kind of a growth thing, and I'm kind of proud of myself for the journey I went on this year, even though it wasn't easy. So I kind of want to just get all that out, and I'm going to be doing a lot of talking, taking some water breaks, and coughing a little bit because, you know, that's me. I'm a talker. I'm Italian, and I'm from New Jersey. What do you expect? And I'll be in New Jersey shortly. So, most everybody knows a decent amount of what did happen. 2022 was a very difficult year for me on both a personal and a professional level. And things started to really improve, especially around this time last year. So moving into 2023, I kind of felt like I was going in with everything that I wanted, everything I needed, everything was coming up Millhouse, as they say. And things fell apart relatively early on. Professionally, in April, things fell apart, and personally, things fell apart first in January, and then again in May. The irony of both of those things is that they all happened around show days. So I didn't have to dwell on them. I had a nice distraction to help me out. And we'll talk a little bit about the wrestling stuff later on when I start doing the update. So I kind of spent the summer in a lot of self-isolation, which I don't know how noticeable that was to everyone as a whole. Dan kind of knew a little bit, mostly because we just weren't doing any projects. That was probably your first clue. But a lot of my nights were spent just sort of reflecting on everything that had happened, and I spent from about end of May until right around Halloween and around my birthday is when things really started. I really felt like I was making a lot of breakthroughs and coming to terms with a lot of things. So a lot of it was me figuring out things that I did wrong, coming to terms with the fact that I did stuff wrong, and coming to peace with the fact that I did some things wrong. Now, there's plenty of things that I will still maintain that the other parties involved were wrong with, whether it was information about me or like the way that they treated me or assumptions about me, because they were wrong. But also coming to terms with the peace behind all that was also me being like, well, I have to admit my fault in situations. There were some things that they said they didn't like that I have to admit that they were right about. And I also have to come to peace with the fact that some people are never going to see things for the way that they are, because some people will create a version of you in their mind that is not who you are, and you're not going to be able to change their minds. So there was a lot of that too, me having to come to peace with that and let a lot of stuff go. And that took months, quite literally the entire summer. It took me to really reflect on that. A lot of sleepless nights just spent with my brain going, and I kept pretty much all of it to myself. I kind of told you and Robin, Matt, and Eric like a little bit of what was going on and who was involved, but I spent a majority of it keeping to myself. And it was a combination of I don't ever like to be that person who comes across as like a miserable sad sap, and I don't want people to feel sorry for me, and I don't want to vent stuff, and like I don't want people to be like, oh, he's just venting and doing this for attention or whatever. Like it was never about that. I was just keeping it to myself because I felt like it was nobody's business and it was personal matters, and I didn't want to talk until I felt ready to talk. And now I'm ready to talk because I've let a lot of stuff go and come to peace with a lot of stuff. Other things happened along the way. Some very, very long-term friendships got severed, including somebody who Dan and I were both very close to for a very long time. It just, their philosophical differences just didn't mesh with mine, and they decided they didn't want to associate with me anymore, and that was difficult, but it's also part of growing up and moving on. You have to let some people go, even if you have been friends with them for over 20 years, because it just gets to that point. And Dan, I'm sure you've been through that before in your life with relationships and friendships and things where you have to just cut your loss and be like, it's never gonna get fixed. So no point in stressing about it. I mean, I'm sure it's happened to you before. It happens to everybody.
Especially the more into adulthood we are, which, I'm over 40, yeah. You're approaching 40, it happens.
Yeah, exactly. My close friendship circle is smaller than it's ever been in my life now. But at the same time, I'm also grateful for that, because I started to learn who's always been there for me and who's always going to be there for me. And I started holding on to those people. And, some people you You're the guy that initiates the conversation. You're the guy that texts first. You're the guy that's always, they're not reaching out to you, and you stop messaging them, and you realize that they just go completely silent, and you realize they're not gonna message you. So that was another thing that, forced friendships and things like that. Why am I gonna hold on to that stuff if they're not gonna put the effort out? Why should I? So there's a lot of that too. But along the way, things changed for the better. And that was another thing too, was, feeling appreciated and having those people who respect you and see your value and see your worth and everything. So there was a lot of that happened, a lot of positives that came out of everything. So I'll kind of wrap up a little bit on the personal side here, and I'll just say a couple of things. I'm not going to mention anybody by name because I don't want, I'm not doing this to harass or hassle anybody or anything like that. And there's a couple of people who may think I'm talking about them, and if you think I am, I probably am. We'll just say that. But I feel better. I feel good. I feel a lot more at peace. I feel a lot happier. And as far as friendships and relationships go, if I've ever been a toxic person in your life, I just want you to know that I apologize for the way I acted. And I've come to terms with a lot of my own toxicity and negativity, and I'm learning to fix it. And I still got a lot of growth that needs to happen. But I'll put this out there for anyone. If you would like to reach out to me and clear the air, whether I owe you an apology or you feel like you owe me one. And that's another thing. Like, I'm not holding any grudges or animosity towards anyone across the board. And I'll use an example here because it's the most harmless example I can think of, and it'll give Dan a chuckle because he knows this person. A certain wrestling friend of ours who had some very strong opinions about what he thought wrestling should be. You know who I'm talking about. We all kind of severed ties years ago, and a very long thread about that existed in the wrestling group for about over 10 years now, when he outed himself from that group. That's like the most harmless example I can think of. Anybody now, I no longer hold grudges, animosity, ill will, or bad feelings towards anyone in my life, period. And it took me an entire fucking year to come to terms with that and embrace that. But I gotta tell you, it's not something I ever thought I would do in my life, but it feels really good. I'm not holding on to anything anymore. So if you want to clear the air, I'm on all the social medias. My handle is pretty much the same everywhere. It's Chris O'Mealy, or sometimes it's still CO'Mealy17 if I haven't changed it. CO'Mealy17 at Yahoo or Gmail are my email addresses. I have had the same cell phone number since I've had a cell phone. So if you have my number, you can easily reach me. So there's no reason why anybody can't get in touch with me if they don't want to. Or if they want to, I should say. And if you don't want to, that's okay. I wish everybody well. I hope everybody lives the life they want to live. I hope you all find everything that you're looking for. I hope your families are good. I hope that your families, your pets, all that stuff. I'm just gonna, what's the word I'm looking for here, Dan? I'm at peace. I'm making peace. I'm letting it go. I don't know. Am I missing anything there? Or? It kind of makes sense. Did I ramble too much? You tell me.
Is there any specifics you want to get into about anything, or do you want to keep it like that?
Let's keep it like that for now. I didn't want to do this to bury anybody. Especially because part of my growth, it was the fact that I did talk a little bit too much about some people, and that upset them. So I'd rather just not take that route anymore. I think they know who they are, especially if they are listening to this. Some of them, I'm sure, are choosing to listen to this. They know who they are. Reach out. If you really want an apology, I'll give you one. And if we never talk again after that conversation and you just want to have that peace and go in peace, I'm all for it. I'm all for it. Because that, to me, is the grown-up way to do it. And you mentioned this earlier. I turned 39 last month. This is my last lap of my 30s. I don't want to enter 40 as the same person I was when I was, in my 20s, because I'm not that person anymore. And I realized I still had some negative qualities about myself I needed to figure out and let go of, and I think I have. Or at least I'm aware of them and I'm working on them. So, and when I say bad blood towards anybody, I literally mean anybody. So if you're listening to this and you're like, oh, he doesn't mean me. No, I do. I truly, sincerely do. Send me a message, one-on-one in private, no public airing, no bad blood, no griefing. And we'll talk, we'll clear the air, and we'll either become friends again or we'll just part ways on good terms. And that's kind of what I want there. And that also applies to the professional changes I went through. No bad blood anymore. And believe me, I had some bad blood for a while there, because being let go of any situation is a difficult one to deal with. But at the end of the day, I'm better off professionally and personally than I ever was. And I've become okay with just being with me, and that's kind of a scary thing when you're going it alone for the first time in over a decade, but I've made peace with that too, and that feels really good. Absolutely no bad blood or hard feelings there either. So yeah, it's been good. It's been really good. And the new jobs have helped tremendously. And here's where we're going to start flipping on the positive side. The hotel that I worked at gave me a nice promotion because they believe in me, and they've given me a lot of compliments about the great job I'm doing. And that appreciation, that heartfelt appreciation, has made me work really hard for them and really, care and feel passionate about my job. The Future is Now coalition that my friend started, he gave me a lot of praise and some public organization-wide meetings about how valuable I am to the team. And that's made me work really hard for him too. Like, I'm always, every single day without fail, I message the two girls that are leading the marketing crew. One of them, Melissa Hatfield. Shout out to her. And I'm like, hey, anything you want me to work on? And they either have something for me or they don't. And I'll work on my stuff, or I will or I'll be like, okay, we'll catch up tomorrow, because everything I've kind of been doing is kind of on standstill while the company officially launches and grows here. But all that praise and everything has made me really passionate about what I'm doing and want to work really hard. And without getting into any names or specifics, but I worked at a warehouse for over 4 years and got denied a promotion that would have been more money and better hours and everything, because I was quote unquote too valuable in the warehouse. And when I took that to the big bosses and said to them, hey, if I'm so valuable here and you're going to prevent me from making this much, then I think you should pay me this much to stay out here. And they didn't do that. And there was a reason why I'm not there anymore. And they know damn well who they are. And this, Dan, because this goes back to early on the podcasting days. I very briefly worked for a bank. And I can say this because this bank doesn't exist anymore. They got bought out. That very blatantly stole an idea from me that I came up with and wasn't going to credit me with them. And I almost had to take a legal route on that. And I can talk about that now because I have legal clearance to do so, and they don't exist anymore. You were there for that one. You remember that.
Yeah.
So, but now And 2 jobs is very difficult, and that's another reason why projects have been slow. But I'm now officially finding my groove in everything that I'm doing. So I'm learning when I can tackle projects again. So we've been talking for the past couple months about stuff that we want to do. I've got ideas. You've got ideas. The new year's coming up. I want to start really pushing forward with them. I just take a sip of water here so I don't start having a coughing fit. If you guys hear any random dings, that's just my GPS. I know how to get to my parents' house, but I like using the GPS for time, so I know how long I'm going to be on the road for. And I also enjoy using it for traffic alerts, because I will GPS a place I've been to 200 times just to know what the traffic's going to be now. Trust me, that's a lifesaver, because especially, what is today, the 22nd? So it's, Christmas is literally 3 days away.
I mean, it's Friday after work on Christmas weekend.
On Christmas weekend, yeah, exactly. So I know I'm gonna. It's been smooth sailing so far, but I know I'm gonna hit it.
Oh yeah, because you got out just before that. You're gonna be hitting it in the next 10 minutes.
Yeah. Well, I'm also hoping a lot of people didn't work and a lot of businesses let out early.
Actually, I heard a lot of people didn't do anything today, and I'm like, wow, I would have been in school today. My superintendent would have been mad that they couldn't have us go on the 23rd because it was Saturday.
I remember the 23rd was always a half day. If we had school, it was always a half day. But yeah, I think we probably would have had a full day. I know that, like, my previous jobs, which were more corporate based as far as hours go, I know that both of them were still open today and did not do any half days or anything. So yeah, I'm sure I'll hit some traffic here, and I'm about to hit a relatively congested area anyway on this drive. So yeah, we'll kind of talk a little bit about some of the projects coming up. And another thing I want to do is, I've had a lot of bad habits of a lot of stop and go, and I don't want to do that anymore. So I think what I'm going to do now is I'm going to focus on one project at a time, and if there is multiple things happening, like if I am doing multiple shows at the same time, kind of work around that schedule and kind of be like, okay, well, we're going to do this show today, and then I'm going to work on this project here, like this YouTube project, and then I'm going to focus on that and get it done and get it out there, and then I'll tackle the next thing. And I feel like I'll actually get some stuff done if I do it that way, because there's a lot I want to do, and I want to have a lot of stuff up and running before the big 40th birthday. Some stuff will be on a scheduled basis, and other stuff will be as I work on it. So I'm not going to put too much on my plate anymore. I'm going to stagger stuff. So first thing I want to talk about is the Nerd Table revival, which you and I talked about doing. We're going to create a new podcast with the similar format to the Nerd Table, but we're going to have a bigger round table of guests on it, and we're going to incorporate some female podcast hosts this time around, because let's be honest here, we all know it, and anybody out there who's ever listened to a podcast before knows that female hosted talents with this kind of topic material draws attention. It's just the reality of the situation. People like listening to women talk about topics that they're into. Podcasting is generally a male-dominated industry as far as both hosts and listenership is concerned, especially with a lot of subject matter. So you play the odds to your favor here. And I picked 2 girls that I think will be not just assets to the team, but also will mesh well with us. One of them, Dan, you've known for a very long time. The other one, Eric and I have known for a very long time. So we kind of just combine that and feel out everybody's vibes and just sort of get a mesh going. you joined in with the Nerd Table, which was originally just going to be me and Eric doing a thing, and you joined in and you found your groove with our sense of humor. You and Eric found that groove together, so it's possible. And yeah, roundtable shows, more talent can mean a little more of a cluster, but it also means more opinions out the way and more fun stuff to talk about. So I think it'll work out really well. The main reason why we haven't gotten that off the ground yet is a lot of personal matters. Eric's been dealing with some stuff. The two girls have been going through their own stuff. So they were kind of just figuring out their schedules along the way. And of course I was doing my things and figuring myself out. So we're now on that path where we're kind of figuring it all out. So there should be a test pilot coming pretty soon. I want to have it out but before the end of January, and I think we'll be able to at least get something out there in that time frame. But I'm looking forward to that because that was always a really fun show. We had a good listenership with it. We brought a lot of people over from the old wrestling podcast that we did for, 10 years or so, I think we had that one going?
Yeah, just under. Maybe like 8.5.
Just under? Yeah. It was a pretty long time frame there. And we went through host changes and everything too, which you do. We had Glenn come on board and he kind of found his groove and his niche with it. So, it's a lot of it is just doing it and getting it out there and kind of working on the kinks along the way, which I'm totally fine with. Let's talk about the wrestling idea that we came up with, Dan, because you were all for it as soon as I told you what my idea was.
Oh yeah, so I have the first month ready, so it's ready for you to read.
Yes, it's ready. Yes. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a limited series podcast called This Week in Wrestling History. And each week we're going to tackle historic wrestling events that happened through those calendar dates. My original idea was to do a daily one and do it for each day, but we both kind of shot that idea down relatively quickly. That's a really hard commitment, 365 days of material, whereas a weekly one with 52 episodes instead is much easier. And also, as part of the research, we realized that there are just some dates where a lot of stuff didn't happen. And there are some dates where a lot of stuff happened. January 4th, for example.
Well, see, that's the thing is in Japan, they run their show on this date every year, as opposed to here where WrestleMania is in a 2-week span on whichever Saturday or Sunday is in that. So that could be several different, 2 weeks of numbers of dates. Whereas
like March 15th to like April 10th is kind of a window there.
Yeah. But for especially New Japan's big show, it's January 4th every year.
Period. Yeah. January 4th, period.
It don't matter if it's Tuesday or Sunday or Saturday. It's the 4th.
So just all the historic stuff that happened there was going to... Plus, January 4th was a very historic night in the Monday Night Wars.
Yes, it was.
So I think I saw how the calendar works out. I think the first episode is going to be like the first 6 days in January, like the 1st to the 6th. And then it'll be the week thereafter. We got a research team on board, which is pretty much just Dan, although it was open to everybody. But yeah, so there's going to be a lot of stuff there. Dan's been doing his due diligence and researching a lot of historical events, a lot of title changes, birthdays, which we'll talk about, because there's a couple of significant ones right out the gate after the new year, including the top drawing wrestler of all time, who was born in Greece.
In the 1800s.
Yeah, in the 1800s. So that's going to be a... Like financially speaking, the top throwing wrestling attraction of all time. So that's like, oh shit, that's right out the gate. So.
Like he drew over 100,000 people for a single match show.
So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna script out these episodes based on Dan's facts. Put some dialogue behind them, and then I'm either gonna record them myself, or Dan and I are gonna split the duty. Like I'll record a paragraph, he'll record a paragraph, and we'll splice them together, but that's going to be fun. And it's a limited series thing. At the end of 2024, it'll wrap up because we can talk about significant things that happened in wrestling that past week. And, what am I going to do after that? I'm not going to repeat the same material moving forward because what's there even going to be to talk about? So, it'll be a limited series thing, but it'll be fun. I'm looking forward to it. And as I've said before, if anybody wants to contribute as far as being on the research team or just being on an episode and reading about a certain historic event that you found significant that made an impact for you, by all means. The big goal, though, is I'm following the Arcadian Vanguard's wrestling news series. There's going to be no opinions and no conjecture, just facts. Here's what happened. I'm going to talk about the time that Goldberg kicked Brett in the head, but I'm not going to talk about my opinion on the matter. I'm going to say it happened. We already know Brett's opinion on the matter. we still know that to this day. It won't be relative to the conversation at hand. So I'm looking forward to that. So those were the two main podcasts that we were talking about relaunching. Let's talk a little bit about Chris Frank's The Universe. That's going to be moving to a YouTube series show, and the big thing holding me up from doing that is just the fact that too much stuff on my plate, wasn't able to sit down and focus on it. But that's something I'm going to really buckle down and do, especially now that I've acquired a new video editor, which I'm going to get Dan a copy of as well, so we're going to be able to work a little bit easier on the editing side of things. I'm not going to have to... Essentially, I was renting an editing program from a friend. I don't have to do that anymore. Now I've got one. So I'm excited about that.
Thanks to the folks at Humble Bundle. I'll tell you what.
Yes, thank you, Humble Bundle.
They had Vegas Pro for $25.
Jumped on that one.
That's a savings of $300 and almost $50.
Oh, the stuff that I bought, I saw like the savings for everything in the package that I got because I spent $25 on it. I got about $960 of value out of my 25 buckaroonies. So, LFG.
We also bought that music pack a couple months ago.
Oh yeah, which is going to help out with
music.
A lot of stuff too. And that was another thing is I really wanted Chris Frank's The Universe and my other projects to have music in them, and I was struggling with that. So that's going to help push things along too. The game show, for example, the music I ended up finding said it was freeware, but it still got hit when I used it, so I didn't want to reuse it again. But now I don't have to. So I'm excited about that. And because that was another thing, the too many things and the personal journey and everything. The game show kind of got lost in the shuffle because it was happening while all that stuff was happening, and it fell by the wayside.
You were also sick, and audio recording would have been very bad at the time.
Oh my God, yeah. I got sick right around that time, and I was having like coughing fits, and I didn't have a voice, and it was terrible. And I had to save my voice for Three Legacies Wrestling, which we'll get to shortly. Holy crap, that was terrible. So it was just terrible timing too. But so I feel really bad about that, but all the stuff is recorded for it except for my parts. And that was another thing was I wasn't really feeling comfortable doing my section on camera. So I'm gonna take that stuff away and do like a quick on-camera and off-camera thing and focus mostly on more text and graphics on camera instead of me, because I was just coming off as very unnatural and uncomfortable, and I wasn't a fan of it. So all that stuff is just going to help make stuff better. But that's also part of the reason why we do these things and we experiment with them to figure out what's working and what doesn't, and we kind of fix those problems along the way. I still sound okay for you because I know I'm in a slightly rough area here as far as signal goes where I'm driving.
You're coming across pretty well. But just like the ambient winds and stuff are a little bit more picked up than usual.
Well, yeah, I'm actually on the highway now, so I also had to turn my defogger on because all the talking I'm doing was fogging my windows. So You know, because it's 35 degrees outside and it is 73 degrees in my car. So those things will happen. So yeah, the YouTube projects and everything, which I'm really looking forward to getting back on track. CKCC video. I'm I was struggling with that too. Like, do I want to do stuff on separate channels? Would that be smart? But I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. I want everything under the one banner, so people only have to subscribe to the one channel and just be really hardcore with the playlists and make sure the playlists are up to date. And if there's any fluff or stuff that's just people aren't watching, I'll download the clips and I'll cut that stuff out. Let's talk a little bit about streaming plans, Dan.
All right.
There's a lot to talk about there.
Well, right now, it is Twitch drops for WWE SuperCard, so I'm on right now as we are speaking. If you're listening to this later, if you're listening to it within a week of recording, it's probably still happening.
There you go.
One of the things I'd like to do in January is Royal Rumble adjacent content. I'd like to have at least one of, or if maybe all the boys of our little group join together and calling some video game rumbles and maybe a handful of real rumbles that we'll just do our own commentary on.
Yeah, I've been dying to do a wrestling watch along series for a while, and I guess I can kind of let's have a brainstorming session right here on the air, Dan. So another idea that I had that I think would be really fun, either as a podcast or a YouTube show, I'm not really sure how, is I wanted to do a new wrestling series again, because we had a lot of fun doing like show reviews and everything, but sometimes that could be kind of time consuming. And I know you really had your heart set on doing the Monday Night War series, which I still want to do. So I didn't want to go too nuts and come up with an additional idea that would affect that. So I thought what would be fun is if we came up with a podcast dedicated to pro wrestling again, but call it something like, you know, the weird world of wrestling or the wide world of wrestling, or something to encompass just the wrestling business as a whole, and do episodes focusing on either a particular match that was historic and the history behind it, and not, instead of doing like a blow-by-blow review, do a whole episode just based on that match, or do it on a specific talent. Like, we can talk about the career of Mark Calloway, The Undertaker, and where he came from and what he did, and do like sections of that. And because here's where I got the idea from, do the bad wrestling, do an episode on the gobbledygooker and why they came up with it and what they thought it was supposed to be, and some of the rumors around that time, like Mean Gene was trying to say that it was going to be somebody from Playboy or like a Miss America model. And it was supposed to be this company mascot that just bombed. I don't want to do like a whole thing on just the bad wrestling, but I think it would be fun if we kind of staggered the episodes. So like maybe one episode will be about a match, for better or worse. Then we'll do one on a character. Then we'll do one on like a moment, or like a pay-per-view as a whole, or like, and then we kind of just cycle back and go through that. I think that would be a lot of fun, and that would be something, instead of just you and me doing it, we could really partner up with like Anthony Blackwell and the ABJ community and get our boys involved, Matt and Rob and Sean. Because I know Matt wants to include Sean on more projects. We can do lots of stuff, lots of independent stuff that we've talked about before, like, you know, hey, here was this really cool match from Chikara. And here's we can talk about some of the weird Chikara gimmicks too, like. And then we can also do independent pro wrestler spotlights, and maybe have an independent wrestler on, and they can tell us about their career. And we can kind of do it like an interview as well. Like, hey, instead of telling you about this guy or this girl, here they are to tell you about themselves and do some roundtables. I do know that Ricardo is all on board with some of these projects, and the hardest part is just getting him to be able to sit down and actually do a recording with us. But once we pull that off, we'll be going here. So that's something that I thought of that I think would be a lot of fun, and we can kind of brainstorm that down the line and run it by the guys to see what they think and come up with ideas and everything. So if you wanna roll with that, I am 100% down with an idea like that. We've talked about doing a revamp of Talkin' Talkies where we talk about movies. I had the idea to do multiple movies at a time and do it kind of like a Siskel and Ebert style review show where we give a thumbs up or a thumbs down or a star rating or some kind of a ranking system or like a letter grade or something, and cover like 3 or 4 movies at a time that all possibly have something to do with each other. And one thing that you came up with, Dan, that I absolutely loved was you came up with a list of like all the IMDb top 250 films and what we've seen and what we haven't, so we can get ourselves to watch a lot of this material that we've never seen before. These high-rated movies that we either have never seen or haven't watched in 10, 15, 20 years. Like, I probably haven't actually watched Forrest Gump in its entirety in over 20 years. And it's also kind of neat to come up with all the movies, like the stuff that you've never seen before. They're just like, man, I've always heard about this movie. It's supposed to be a classic, and I've just never sat down and watched it. So, and I think that would be a lot of fun to do too. And we can have guests come on with that as well. And they can kind of be like, oh, I want to review these movies. Okay, cool. So we'll kind of theme it around them. Our buddy Jeff Trelowitz, who is already on board with this idea, we know he's big on Kevin Smith. So what if we did one where we reviewed the Clerks trilogy and had Jeff on as the guest for that? And then, so there's some ideas in there too. How would everybody feel about a movie review podcast again? I mean, they're a lot of fun. Would that be something people would want to be on board with? Would people want to join us for that? Let us know. Part of this whole brainstorming session here is to not just talk about stuff that we're gonna do, but talk about stuff we want to do. I want to get back into the streaming process again and bring back the Nintendo Melee stuff, the Super Nintendo Melee stuff, and the streams weren't picking up a lot of traction. So what I thought I would do was actually start playing the games and just editing them into short review shows, maybe less than 10 minutes long, and some themes around that too. Like, instead of reviewing every NES game in order, maybe I'll review all of the Mario themed NES games, stuff in the Mario universe, and kind of rate and grade them too. And then we'll move on to, we'll do the Mega Mans, or we'll do the Konami classics and all that stuff. So a lot of stuff there too. And there was some stuff that I know you wanted to stream big time this year coming up that you talked about. If you want to throw some of that out there too.
Oh man, what was I talking?
I just remember that there was a lot of other stuff that you had discussed streaming as well that we were kind of just waiting for there to be the better opportune moments to do stuff, and not so much of a struggle to make some stuff happen. But we're working on things, and we're making
a lot
stuff
of it is
happen.
I don't want to do stuff alone is the main thing.
Right. And I get that. I 100% get that.
Because I'm heavily influenced by the New Legacy Twitch channel, and they're a big group of guys from all over the place, and there's always, there's a few times where there's just one of them playing a game, but the big streams there's like at least 3 of them, and they're doing something. Like last night, they compiled the 8 WWE wrestlers with the most losses in the year, and they made a tournament. And you advance by losing, of course, and In the end, they crowned The Miz as the biggest loser of 2023.
That's like the most. You couldn't have booked that anymore perfectly.
And of course, when the year comes up and you learn stuff like Gunther is in the top 8 for most losses, essentially, I think the rundown was he had 43 Intercontinental title defenses during the year, counting house shows. Those were all wins. And then I believe he had 48 matches otherwise without the title on the line, and he lost all but 5 of them.
Oh my God. And a lot of them were also mixed tag matches, right?
So a lot of them were tag matches, because the rest of the team of Imperium also in the top 8. And then also in the top 8, all the guys in Judgment Day are in the top 8 for most losses.
That's hysterical. And then there's The Miz.
Well, I remember hearing, like, in the mid-aughts, there was a year where Randy Orton had the most losses on television, and he was world champion more than half the year.
There was... Do you remember the... you weren't really watching at the time, but you remember the infamous Triple H title reign of Doom, right?
Yes.
Where he was like, world champion for, like, 2 years running. I actually did I compiled all his wins and losses for the year. He actually had way more losses than he had wins. The thing was, because he was always constantly getting beaten, but he would either win when it mattered, when he was defending the title, or, you know, after he lost the title, he was constantly losing. He was just constantly in the main event picture all the time. And when you actually put those numbers to paper, there were also other times when I would find, like, who was the most winningest guy of the year, and you'd find out it was actually, like, Rey Mysterio or Chris Benoit, and you're like, they're not even pushing Benoit anymore, but he wins almost every match he's in regardless.
Because they throw him in a 6-man tag and he wins. And
exactly.
Because the match quote unquote don't matter.
It don't matter.
Or who wins the match quote unquote don't matter. And
right.
The only thing important about this 6-man tag is that, you know, The Miz runs in on Daniel Bryan, or tries to run in on Daniel Bryan, and
right. It wasn't there to advance their win-loss records. It was there to advance a storyline kind of thing. Very true. Trying to think if there. I mean, obviously there's other stuff. I'm trying to before I shift gears back into the towards 3 Legacies here. I want to see if there's just anything else that we've discussed. My question. Oh, I remember. My question was going to be, when the New Legacies guys do their thing, are they all playing something different?
Well, usually they come together. They're doing like a big event, like that tournament yesterday, where only literally one of them is running the game, but everybody else is watching live and talking and stuff like that.
Okay.
Sometimes they'll play something together. They do a lot of pay-per-view simulations, like the day or two before it.
Right.
And
those are always fun.
And they'll just get random ideas and they'll run with it. And then one of the big things they do is they do release night streams. Like, actually, at like 2 a.m. this morning, they did a brand new wrestling game that just came out in early access called Casual Wrestling Game.
Casual wrestling game, okay. We should take that idea and combine it with my idea, you know, playing through these game libraries and everything. And we should just make that just one series on Twitch, and then we can just edit it down as needed. Because I kind of like... I'm going to be recording a lot of game footage for editing purposes anyway, so it doesn't really matter if we're talking over it, because there's going to be a narration over the game footage. So yeah, we can turn that into a whole thing, a whole thingy, a whole gimmick, if you will, brother. Can make that the gimmick. So yeah, I'm of course I'm down for that. And another thing is, I want to just remind everybody that We're always looking for channel growth. I like the idea of CKCC Radio having a lot of different variety on it. And I'm always down for people's ideas. If somebody has an idea for a podcast and they want to come on the channel and try it, Mark and Brian at United We Fan Podcast did that. They came on, they experimented, and then they grew into their own thing. And they still, to this day, credit us with helping them get started and launching, and they're doing great for themselves. So I'm fine with people if they want to come on and do a couple episodes and get their feet wet and then decide they want to branch off and do something on their own. You know, we'll give you the platform to do it. All you do is record the audio and we'll get it out there for you. And you can decide if podcasting's the thing for you, and you can either stick with us and be part of the channel, or you can go on. You can spread your wings and fly, little birdie. Get out of the nest. So, other than some of the stuff we talked about before, was there any other ideas that have been floating around in your head that you've considered implementing? Or anything that you want to announce that you want to try to do as we approach the new calendar year?
Oh, man. I've just been... Like, that one thing about the top movies and cataloging which ones I haven't seen, like... There's a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of worthwhile and, you know, things that make you think and maybe change your worldview or you know, or at least think about it. And they don't
absolutely.
get watched.
I mean, that's why I said, like, I'm not even the same person I was 6 months ago with how much mental exercising I went through. So, like, yeah, I'm gonna look back and I'm probably gonna watch some of these movies again, you know, with a whole different. That's another reason why I'm excited for, like, the clean slate on watching these movies, even if we did already review something on Talkies, because I'm gonna be watching everything with a whole new vision, a whole different perspective, and I'm sure my opinions have changed. Maybe they haven't, brother. I'm not sure. Guess we got to find out. That's why I said I wanted to do I thought the perfect debut episode topic, because Talkie's debut was Shawshank, considered to be the greatest movie of all time. It's the top-ranked IMDb movie, et cetera, et cetera. So I was like, well, what other movies can we correlate with Shawshank and do that as a review? And I was like, well, why don't we do Stephen King movies? Like 4 of Stephen King's best movies, or what's considered to be his most legendary work, combine that and make that the first episode. And that checks off a box for me, because I don't know if I've ever seen The Green Mile in its entirety, now that I think about it. So right there, that's a movie. Haven't watched Shawshank since probably the last time we reviewed it on Talkies, which was years ago. Haven't seen Green Mile in a long time, so that checks that off. And then we can find 2 other things that relate to it. Or maybe it doesn't have to be King. Maybe it can just be book-to-movie adaptations. You know, a connection, right? A connection, something that makes you think, something that, I don't know. We'll come up with something. But that's kind of where I was thinking the idea would be.
I would, if we were going to do it, I would go with, like, Prison Idea, maybe, but the Asylum, and do One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Oh, that's a good idea too, because they all have that theme to them. Yeah. Okay, I'm down with that. And I'll let everybody know that, like, we're gonna absolutely take suggestions on these too. So if you got an idea for a theme, because eventually we're gonna tackle stuff that we've seen before. But, like, for example, when we do Star Wars again, are we just going to tackle them trilogy by trilogy, or do we want to really branch out and do different stuff there? Like, maybe we'll do all the spin-offs as an episode, Rogue One and Solo, and eventually there's going to be this, or the Clone Wars movie we could even talk about, because I certainly got thoughts on that. We could talk about the... and part of this project that we came up with is going to eventually combine it with an old idea that I had that we never got to implement, which was I wanted to do a bad movie review thing too, like a Mystery Science Theater thing. And I thought that would be a ton of fun. But instead of doing it the movie blow by blow, I'd rather do the discussion, the roundtable episode. But that was like I had the idea to do an episode where it was The Room, Plan 9 from Outer Space. What else did I come up with? Disaster movie, because that's number 1 on IMDb's bottom. So that's where I pulled that one from. And I think the last one was Geely, because that's like a legendarily bad movie with a big budget. And I was like, fuck, I'd be excited to do that too, because I'm going to watch a lot of crap, but then I get to dunk on it. And come on, that's fun. Everybody knows it's fun to dunk on crap. So, and I'm sure, even with all these ideas and everything, there might be some episodes where maybe I'm not there, or Dan's not there, because maybe, Dan, I know you're not big into the horror genre, so if we start doing something horror related, you may want to just bow out for that episode. So there'll be opportunities for other people to come on and discuss stuff. But, that's all part of the experience too. Get some different hosts out there. People can get their feet wet. They can talk about stuff, especially if we're reviewing your favorite movies, Get your ass on the podcast and talk about it. Because I don't want there to be any more stop and go. If we do a podcast now where we review the OG Star Wars trilogy, I want that to be the podcast where we review the OG Star Wars trilogy. That's the podcast. That's the episode. That's the discussion.
That is, by the way, our old one was so successful, we had to remove all other podcasts from our feed.
Yes, because we were using the free feed on our old network, and it was based on bandwidth. So
yeah, you can either hit it on based on hits or based on how much stuff you actually have backed up. And so many people listened to that episode that we hit the hits level too far.
I mean, it's one of those things where it's a good problem to have, right? Like, we were so excited when the first 3 Legacies wrestling show sold out to the point where we ran out of chairs for people. It was a good problem to have. So, So, and that might happen again. Talking about Star Wars, it's the most popular movie franchise of all time. So,
plus, when we did that, there was only a 7th about to come out, and now there's 6 more movies that have come out since then.
Oh my god, yeah. Because we reviewed the prequel trilogy and the OG trilogy to prep for the release of episode 7.
Yeah.
So, and we'd have to actually review the sequel trilogy. We got to review the spinoffs. And you know me, if we're doing it all the way. We're doing the holiday special. We're doing the Ewok movies. We're doing everything. But that's the other thing, too, is like if we're going to end up talking about something that the other party involved, the main party, doesn't want to be a part of or just isn't interested in, we have that option to just be like, well, we'll find a different co-host for that week. So if we start doing, Nightmare on Elm Street movies and you're like, yeah, I just don't want to watch those, that's totally cool. We'll get some horror enthusiasts on board. And for that week, we'll just cover it. I keep saying that week like it's going to be on a schedule. As part of this whole thing is I want to focus on one project at a time and get one episode out. And, when I'm done with the one thing, I'm going to move on to the next thing. But I want to focus on the thing, so I'm not going to burn myself out and try to take on too many things at once. Okay, yeah, the History of Wrestling podcast, that's going to be the exception, right? Because that's time-based, that's time-sensitive, but that will be the one exception. Everything else is just going to be, all right, well, Dan, I think I'm going to watch 4 movies, and when we're done, let's record a podcast, and then when we're done with that, I'm going to start playing this Mario game, so let's get one of our streams going. Kind of just tackle it that way, and just make it happen, get the stuff out there. And then another thing I want to do is, because this has been working out for a lot of channels, is I want us to start getting shorts and reels too. Put out some quick content too. And that'll, maybe a two-minute episode about something. and that's going to
we
help
could
drum
probably put a short and
too.
reel out on that Fall Guys thing when we were playing and we ended up alone, and you said you haven't won that level before. So Matt just dove off.
So Matt just ducked out, yeah.
You could turn that.
Or when I was doing my Wheel of Fortune stream and my cat screamed into the microphone. Stuff like that. Oh, I'll pull that Mario Party video and pull some stuff out of that too. Like when we tried to do the photo frame thing and all we got was Waluigi teabagging us and you just screamed out, "My balls!" Yeah, put some of that stuff out there too. And I also want to get more collaborations done with some of these other channels. My friend Anthony Blackwell Jr. over on the ABJ network, and guys should check him out because he's starting to relaunch a lot of stuff. Tornado Tag's making a comeback. Not Cool in High School is going to be making a comeback. And he's a good dude. He's not that far from me either, so I can always collaborate with him in person if we can get our schedules to mesh up. But he's a really good dude. He's out there. He's hustling. The ABJ podcast is awesome too because he's interviewing all this independent talent and getting their names out there. He's my episode with him should be airing in the next couple weeks here. I think I'm episode 97 and he's putting out 95 now. We recorded it back in October, so keep an eye out for that too. But support him and follow him. He's a good guy. He's hustling his ass off, and he and I definitely want to collaborate on more stuff because we're very similar in personality and in our goals and everything, and wanting to make all this stuff happen. So I think you'll see some collaborations there too. Yeah, I think project-wise, I think that's everything. So I think I'll give you guys some hype for what's coming in 2024. So, Three Legacies Wrestling has officially grown or outgrown the building we were in. And while we will be doing a couple of shows there in 2024, we're moving to a new venue. We're going to be at Millersville University, which is on the southwest end of Lancaster, in their gymnasium, which is friggin' huge because obviously they, college basketball games and stuff like that. I think it can accommodate up to 2,000 people. We're going to have a big show at the Lancaster Convention Center on March 30th. That's going to be, if the Red Rose Rumble is our WrestleMania, this is going to be our SummerSlam. To put that in perspective for people. So it's going to be another big show at the convention center. And the Red Rose Rumble, we will be returning in August, right at the beginning of August, too. It's like August 3rd or 4th. I can't remember the specific date, but it's right there. We're going to be back at Clipper Magazine Stadium at the baseball stadium. And we drew 2488 was our official final tally. I'm going to get that tattooed on me, Dan. I've heard that's the thing to do when you hit a number.
At least you.
Except it's the actual number.
At least you waiting almost a year to do it instead of doing it right away.
I also know it's the actual number, not a fabricated one. So, yeah, and that's cool because that was the biggest crowd I've ever been in front of, and it was just a hype experience and everything. Like, so cool and so much fun. I'm doing more stuff with Three Legacies, getting more promotional stuff out for them, so I'm really excited about that. Helping a little bit out with talent. Got some people in mind I want to get some opportunities for. So we'll see how that goes. Ricardo's been awesome. He's such a great coach. He's a really good promoter. He listens to people. You can present him with an idea and he'll actually listen to it. And even if he doesn't like it, he'll tell you why he doesn't like it. He just doesn't go, "Oh, that's terrible. That's stupid." Like, we're not doing that. Like so many other promoters I've worked for. So I'm really looking forward to that. The book has really fallen through the crevices this past year. And that was another thing too. Part of that whole journey that I went on was finding myself again and finding the things that made me passionate, because in 2022, I lost a lot of my identity. I put a lot of stuff aside and I wasn't working on a lot of things that made me happy, and I don't want to go through that again. So I still want to be a published author. I still have all these book ideas. So I'm going to start really making that a part of my downtime too, and anytime I've got that urge, get writing, and I've actually moved all my books, or the one that I want to put out first, the one I'm actively working on, I actually moved it to a Google Doc so I can edit it from anywhere. So I can edit it from any computer, as long as it were connected to the internet. And I have the offline server too on my iPad, so it'll connect and download all my previous stuff. So if I am offline, I can just pull it up on my iPad, work on it there. And I'm a little bit of a slower typer on the iPad than I am on an actual keyboard. But at least I know I won't lose any progress that way. So yeah, I mean, that's also part of this work too. Part of the whole thing was to find myself again and get back into projects and push stuff out and be creative, because that's the stuff that makes me happy. And moving forward, and it's gonna sound like a negative, but I mean it as a positive, because this is how it should be. Any future relationship I make with any person from here on out, friendship or otherwise, whatever it is, you have to understand that this is a part of who I am. And I'm not saying that you have to automatically become a fan of my podcasts or a fan of pro wrestling, or you have to come to all the Three Legacies wrestling shows. We can still be friends. We can still hang out. We can do our thing, right? But you have to understand that that's a part of who I am, and I'm not putting that aside for anybody, because I will not, moving forward, even if we've known each other for 20 years plus, I am not sacrificing the things that make me happy and the things that make me who I am just for you, especially when you're not willing to do the same thing for me. The Star Wars conversation. Hey, I know you've never seen Star Wars before, but you know, it's a big franchise for me. If I wanted to sit down and watch it with you, would you be up for it? And if you say no, well then why should I put aside, why should I suddenly make myself available for stuff that you like? Give and take, people. That's how you form grown-up relationships with people. We're not kids anymore. I'm not in my 20s anymore. I don't have the time or patience for this. No? 40 could literally, if I live to be 80 years old, then 40 is literally my halfway point. So I'm not wasting time, and I'm not moving backwards. It's time to move forwards with everything. So the writing, and I want to get my blog going again too, as soon as I can come up with some things to talk about. Because I haven't written in a long time, and I think just doing that would be a lot of fun. So yeah, that's what it's all about, man. That's what it's all about, man. Moving forward and doing the stuff that makes you happy, and I'm excited to do this with you because you're one of my best friends, and we got Rob and Matt on board, our little gamer crew here. Eric, who I've known since I worked at Disney, who's become one of my best friends as well. Melissa, who's been a huge asset for me as a friend these past couple of years. Like, I'm excited to do all this stuff with you guys and collaborate with people and just keep stuff moving. So if you guys, I'm not saying you have to listen to every single episode of content I put out, but if you can subscribe to the channel, subscribe to the YouTube, that helps a lot. So that's really all I'm asking right now. And the Three Legacy stuff, I know pro wrestling ain't for everybody, and a lot of you guys, you can't just make the trip to Lancaster to see a show. I get that. But it does help when you share the stuff, when you react to the stuff, when you're, the positive reactions and everything. It goes a long way. It shows that people are paying attention. It shows the value. It increases the viewership. So that's all I'm asking, and I don't think I'm asking that much. And I give back what I receive. So when you've got something you're working on and you want that engagement and that reaction and everything, you just got to send me your stuff. Like, let's talk. I am all for helping people in this field, in this creative aspect. Get on board. The Pokemon cards, if you want one, just shoot me a message. They're $15. I'll make one for you. We'll customize it to your full liking. I'll send you the high-res image. And it's yours to do whatever you want with. Let's get this stuff moving and get on board here. There was one more thing I'm trying to think of that was on the tip of my head. I was going to think about throwing out there again. I covered most everything, I think. Three Legacies growing, jobs taking care of me, the friendship aspect and everything. I think I covered a lot. I think there may have been one little thing I wanted to throw out there that I'm just kind of blanking on right now, but I can't come up with it. That's fine. If I think of it later, I'll say something, but whatever. Dan, any follow-up from you? Any questions, comments? Anything you think I can elaborate more on, or if we got to backtrack, we'll backtrack, but
I'm excited about this, and I'm excited to be part of it.
there you go. All right. So we got that stuff all in the works here. Working with a lot of people. I mean, I've got a good support system. I've got lots and lots of projects coming up. Get the blog going again. Get some fan fiction out there, because that helps my writing go here. Put that stuff out for free. I had a novelization. And I kind of came up with my own creative aspect, my own creative twist on it.
You're going to have to repeat that one. We lost you in the middle of it.
Yeah, well, that's fine. All I said was fan fiction, so. But, no. And if anybody's curious, it's good. I'm the happiest I've been in a long time. I'm more focused and driven than I have been in a long time. Like I said before, I truly wish the best for everybody that I've been involved with, who may not like me as a person anymore and may not want anything to do with me anymore. I'm totally fine with the way that you feel. I don't hold any grudges anymore. I'm fine with clearing the air. If you think I'm mad at you, I'm not, and that's the honest truth. I'm not mad at anyone anymore. If you're still mad at me, that's okay. You can be mad. You can be as mad as you want to be. If you ever want to try to clear the air, we can, but I'm letting that stuff go, and, all I ask is that you be honest with yourselves too, and if, don't be honest with who you are, be honest about the things you want to do, look for the things you want to do, be passionate about them, don't let anybody control what you're doing if they're not contributing to your life in a positive way. And I don't mean just spiritually either. I mean even like financially speaking. If they're not contributing to you in that positive way, don't let them do stuff for you. Yeah, it's hard to grow podcasts. It's hard to grow stream attention and everything, but do it because you want to do it, because you're passionate about it, because eventually people are going to come around to that. And if somebody's not positively being a part of your life anymore, it might be difficult, especially if you've known them for a long time, but consider letting them go. Consider letting them just go. Just get out and be on the wayside and cut that tie. I know some people are going to say, you'll meet people in your life that have known me that'll say that they're better off without me in their lives. And that's fine, because that's good for them and that's good for me. And there are people some very long-term friends, people I've known for a long time, since grade school, that I no longer choose to associate with because they weren't adding anything positive to my existence. And that's my decision, and I'm happier for it. I've got a good friendship circle now. I don't want to go nuts. I mentioned a bunch of y'all already, but I don't want to go nuts trying to mention everybody, because I'll inevitably leave someone out. But the CKCC crew, the 3LW crew, my colleagues at Fink and at the Inn at Leola Village, you guys have just been phenomenal. The friends that I have kept along the way, who have stuck with me, you guys have just been tremendous, and I'm happy to know you. I will always, I'm always a phone call away. I'm always a text away. I'm always a message away. You reach out to me. You ever need anything, you reach out. I'm not, like I said before, I'm not a hard person to reach. I'm not a hard person to find. So, I remember what the thing was. The last thing I'll talk about today, and then I'll wrap up here so Dan can get back to Twitch drops and I can get back to driving here, because I'm getting a little hungry and I'm looking at my road snacks here and they're kind of taunting me right now. So, Patreon. I'm gonna kind of let this be a decision that we all kind of make together here, but if anybody has the time, it's an almost 3-hour video, but somebody I followed for a really long time named Maddox. He had the best page in the universe. He wrote some books. He had a podcast and everything. He was always just a satire guy that I always found really entertaining and everything. Has just put out an almost 3-hour video basically talking about an obsessed stalker fan that's prevented him from putting out any content like the last 5 years or more. And it was almost terrifying because it's something that could very realistically happen to us as content creators. An obsessed fan taking things too far, spreading lies, spreading misinformation, ruining reputations, ruining you financially. And Patreon, the platform, has been well aware of this happening and has largely and it's kind of turned me off to Patreon as a platform. So while I'm not going to just up and make this decision, obviously without Dan and I talking this through more, because he's big involved with it too, I am strongly considering getting us off the Patreon platform altogether and maybe moving to, because we've done the $5 and $10 subscription fees anyway, so maybe moving to the $5 VIP tier on Podbean and doing a $5 tier on YouTube as well. So for $10, you're still getting all of our content, and it's all in one place already. Just because I'm kind of soured on what Patreon did to this guy, and the fact that it could very realistically happen to me, and that's not something that I want to deal with personally. So that's just something that I've had in my mind. Dan and I haven't really talked about it extensively off the air. We don't have to talk about it now. Because it does involve the team as a whole, and our Patreons should be consulted on this anyway. But I thought if we just maybe did 2 separate VIP tiers, one for the audio, one for the video, that kind of uniforms it anyway. You're still paying the same amount, and that will definitely help us influence getting the content out. And our patrons have been so friggin' awesome, staying supportive and everything, and you guys have really helped. I am going to use the last patron drop of the year here to renew CKCC Radio for another year, because that does cost quite a bit of money. Whatever doesn't get covered by patron, I'll cover with my own expenses. And then we'll talk about the official drop sometime in January. I want to kind of make that decision moving forward. And that's another thing that I want to talk about with Dan. And that'll be more of a one-on-one conversation, because we want to come up with exclusive content just for you guys as a thank you, and at the very least make sure all the early drops are happening so the paid content subscribers always get first dibs on everything, and always get that influence of influencing our decisions here. Like if we're doing a Q&A podcast, oh my god, I forgot about the Not So Humble broadcast, so I'll circle back to that in a minute. But you're doing a Q&A podcast, if a paid person, a subscriber, a VIP person asks a question, their question gets asked automatically. That kind of tier reward thing. And Dan, I'm sure you and I could come up with tons of other rewards and incentive here, but that was just something I wanted to throw out into the universe. It's not something set in stone. Maybe we'll decide to keep Patreon. I don't know, but just things that I think about, guys. My brain's always going, whether I want it to or not. So, and that's another reason why I wanted to do this podcast specifically, because a lot of this is a lot of venting and airing out and just getting a lot of shit off my chest, so it's not just floating in my head anymore, and it feels really effing good. Not So Humble broadcast, my one-on-one interview show. I am going to launch that next year. It's going to have some sponsors and ads on it. I'm going to be interviewing people all about what makes them them. So I'll have a forum out that people can sign up for. So if you want to be interviewed, you fill out the form, give me your contact information, and tell me what it is you want to come on the show and talk about, and we'll plan it out, and we'll get you on the show. And I'm excited to do that because everybody's got a story, and everybody deserves to have their story heard. And I think it'll be a lot of fun. So that's the other big podcast thing I was going to launch. That's everything, Dan. I covered it all because Patreon and the Not So Humble broadcast were the two things that I spaced on, and I pulled them back. So, final thoughts from you, good sir.
Well, I guess be ready for new content coming as soon as right now as we're speaking. Again, I am streaming live right now. As we're speaking. And if you listen to this talk within a week or so of its recording, it's probably still happening. So,
yes. So please subscribe to CKCC Radio, wherever you get your favorite podcasts. We're on pretty much all of the major podcasting networks. We're on Spotify, we're on Apple iTunes, we're on iHeartRadio. So however you prefer to listen to your podcasts, or you can always get the Podbean app and listen directly. YouTube, CKCC Video is the YouTube channel. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. That's going to help us tremendously. We are still under 100 subscribers. I'd really like that to be the first major change, is to get over 100. And then I'm going to start kind of looking for some milestones here. That's going to really help with the content production, too. More people watching, the more that's going to go. And then Twitch, CKCC Online is our Twitch channel. Please subscribe there as well. We are an affiliated channel now, so that is one of the main income sources that we have, along with the VIP services and everything. So a Twitch subscription and a follow and everything really helps out. And you join those live chats and everything and chat with us, talk to us, what's LA Knight's line? Let me talk to you. Yeah. Or what do you guys want to talk about? So yeah, keep it tuned. Movie content, the TV show content. Chris Ranks the Universe. Again, I'm going to take lots of ideas from people there and really work on that. I'll say right now, the first Chris Ranks the Universe is going to be a ranking of The Simpsons Season 1. A, because it's The Simpsons. B, because it's something I really wanted to redo anyway, because my opinion on the order of the episodes has changed after the last time I went and rewatched that series. So that's going to be like a scripted, edited thing that I'm going to put out on YouTube. I'm not sure if I'm going to have guests on that show just yet, because it is going to be all a post-production thing. There's not going to be a live aspect to that show. I'm still working on that and figuring that out, guys. So, please don't think that I'm, forgetting you or failing to contact. It's a thing that I'm literally just unsure of at this time, but we'll figure that out in time. Dan, any plugs that you want to drop in there while we're at it?
I think you covered everything.
Okay. And then, of course, if you want to reach out to us on social media, Facebook, you can friend me. If I don't know you personally, I would prefer that you contact me and tell me how you know me. If all of our mutual friends are Three Legacies people, then I can kind of infer from context. So I've gotten a huge inundation of friend requests with the growth here, a lot of fans and a lot of workers wanting to be my friend. Twitter, I'm not as active on Twitter as I used to be with the whole X platform. It's just not really that into it anymore, but you can still follow me. I do still occasionally tweet stuff. That would be Chris O'Mealy in full. No other additional stuff there, really. That's Twitch. We covered Twitch already. Instagram, Chris O'Mealy as well, and same with TikTok. Dan, if they want to find you on social media, what would would they go about doing that?
I am HH2 News on everything.
There you go. And it helps when you uniform your ID and everything. Yeah, so yeah, that's the big update. That was a very cathartic podcast. Not gonna lie, guys. Like, it feels really good talking about a lot of that stuff. And I know some people are going to be like, "Oh, there's a lot of vagueness there." Yeah, well, I don't want to hold those grudges and hold those negative feelings anymore. So I'm not going to come on this show. If you guys wanted a CM Punk style burial, I'm sorry that I didn't give that to you, but I'm not. That's not who I am.
That was at Thanksgiving. Anymore. This was at Christmas.
Yeah, like it's not who I am anymore, and I'm not the same person I was a year ago, 6 months ago, 5 years ago. Like, I'm impressed with a lot of my growth. I know I still got a long way to go on a lot of stuff, but I'm happy and I'm doing well, and I'm wishing everybody the best, and I'm letting go of those negative feelings, and I'm letting people know that I'm open to mending fences and everything, more so than I've ever been before, and I'm cool with moving on if people don't want to. So, like I said, we're gonna find the stuff that makes us happy, and we're gonna roll with it. And I'm about to go through a tunnel, so let's see if I'm still on the other side here. Whoa, tunnel! I think I kept my service going there. So, but yeah, just give us those likes and those subscriptions, and if you can't afford any of our VIP tier stuff, or you don't think it's worth your time, that's fine. Patrons, if we do switch platforms and you don't want to resubscribe, that's okay. I'm not going to hold anything against you. I'm not going to sever friendships over stupid stuff anymore. I'm going to hold on to the people I want to hold on to, and I'm going to let go of the people who, it is what it is. And that's going to be moving forward from now on. But like I said, shout outs to Dan, shout outs to the patrons, shout outs to all those other crews. You guys have kept me sane, more so than I think a lot of you realize, especially over the past year. And like I said, I did vague a lot of stuff, but some of you didn't know what was going on, and I very much appreciate it. And I'm good. I'm looking forward to moving on. I'm looking forward to letting stuff go. And I'm looking forward to getting this stuff moving. So that is your update here for 2024. And I love y'all. And that's it. That's the perfect way to end it right there. So, Dan, if you want to go ahead and wrap us up, I'm for it.
All right. So that was the talk with Chris about what's been going on and what's going to be going on. Those of you who are live on Twitch, we will be ending the stream for about a minute, so we have the VOD back up for this conversation for us to put up later on other places. We will be back in that minute. So goodbye, and we'll be right back.